Well, hello and welcome to another edition of the Llama Commerce Show. I am your host, Brett Curry, lead strategist here at Classy Llama, and I'm excited about this show. I always am, but this one is going to be a ton of fun. We're looking at the topic of B2B e-commerce and talk about an area of e-commerce that is growing. I actually saw a stat, and I'm hoping our guest will confirm this, because with stats, any kind of stat, you can probably find like a million versions of any given stat. So who knows what's actually accurate or not, but our guest does. That's who. But I did see that B2B sales are double B2C sales. So business to business sales online, double business to consumer sales online. So when we think e-commerce, most people think e-commerce, they think Amazon or Jet or something like that. But B2B e-commerce is absolutely huge. So we're going to talk about what's hot right now. What separates the winners from the losers in the B2B space? What trends should you pay attention to? What should you capitalize on? What should you be thinking if you're a B2B e-commerce merchant, or if you're a service provider to the B2B space? What do you need to be aware of? What do you need to be thinking about? And here with me today is truly an expert on this topic, none other than Mr. Paul Demery. He is the editor for B2B at Internet Retailer, the authority when it comes to e-commerce news and information. And so Paul travels a lot. He speaks, he moderates, he has his finger on the pulse of everything B2B. And actually, we were just talking before the show, and he said he's been in e-commerce since 1999. How many people can claim that? That wasn't an old joke either, Paul, just so you know. But anyway, it's my privilege to welcome to the show Paul Demery. Paul, how you doing?
Good, Brett. Thanks for that generous introduction there. It's always it's fun to talk to you guys.
Yeah, we're excited about it, and well deserved, and excited to dive into this topic. We have B2B clients, and one that I'm sure will come up in the call because they're so much fun. It's a fascinating space. It's a space that's changing. I'm sure there's still some wholesalers and distributors out there that are taking orders via fax machine and over the phone and things like that. But B2B e-commerce is exploding. So let's dive in, Paul. And first, let's talk about some trends, some stats. What is surprising you right now, or maybe nothing surprises you because you're in the industry, but what would surprise the rest of us about some e-commerce B2B trends or stats?
Sure. Well, you alluded to some of them before. And this is in the U.S. alone, B2B e-commerce sales are actually more than double the retail e-commerce sales. That come from the research firms and all that. And it's just been just earlier this year where Forrester Research came out with a definitive numbers of their own, where they estimated for this year about $780 billion in U.S. e-commerce sales. And that does not include electronic data interchange, or EDI. That's the e-commerce site sales. And so that compares, I guess, with about 340, or I don't know what the exact number is now, 340, 350 on the retail side for U.S.
Wow, substantially bigger.
Yeah, right. Crazy. And so and Forrester is saying that they're projecting it would reach like about $1 trillion by 1999, or 1.13 trillion by 2020. There's other figures from like Frost and Sullivan, where they're saying this would be, if you look at global, you're talking, many trillion, something like 6 or 7 trillion.
It's crazy. Hard to wrap your mind around those numbers. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So that's good. And in terms of and so growth percentage is also high if we're talking about it, growing from where we are today to where they're projecting in 2020 and beyond. So let's talk about what are some of the keys to success, right? So it's obviously growing, and I'd like to, and actually before we talk about keys to success, this may be an interesting thing to talk about first. Why is B2B e-commerce growing so rapidly? I mean, obviously e-commerce as a whole is growing. People love to buy things online, but why B2B? Why is it growing? What's really fueling that?
Right. Well, I guess it's both on the or if you mostly look at on the demand side. A lot of the purchasing people at businesses who have to, procure products for their companies. A lot of them are the younger millennials, or people who grew up with the internet. So they grew up, accustomed to the ease
Whippersnappers
of
like
shopping
Jesse
on Amazon
Tyler.
or going on the internet to whatever their favorite site is. So, and that expectation is just becoming more common among the buyers. So I'm sure a lot of manufacturers, wholesalers, distributors, they realize they have to get into this somehow. They have to provide not only an online site, which may be the first, an e-commerce site, which may be the first for them, but they may need to make it, easy to use, and with helpful graphics or helpful videos or whatever it is that people need to make it, make the business buyer, give them the online experience they need to do their jobs easier and faster.
Right.
So they can do their purchasing job quicker, make sure they buy what they need, because it can be complicated. They buying complicated systems for their companies, or they have to make sure they're buying everything that the employees that they're buying for need, or you're buying what they need to resell, whatever it is.
Sure. Yeah, and it makes sense that the demand is driving this, just like it is on the B2C side of things. We want the convenience, we want the ease of buying online, and certainly the younger demographic, millennials, want to buy online. I think it's an expectation, though, for most buyers, is that they want to purchase online. And it's also interesting because we talk to some B2B merchants, and we have several that we help either on the marketing side at Classy Llama or on the design side. And I was talking to a B2B company on the Northeast, or in the Northeast, a few months ago, and so their goal, and they primarily sell through reps, manufacturer reps, and they have territories, and they travel and meet with manufacturers and try to sell their goods. And their goal was to start a new e-commerce site that would, in the next 12 months, match the sales of one salesperson. So they wanted this new online channel to basically represent a new salesperson, and then they could grow it from there. And so I think on the supply side, or on the merchant side, they're saying, okay, people want this, people expect this, people will buy online. If I'm not there, I'm going to be missing out. So it's interesting. What do you think the keys to success are? Now, you talked about one of them a minute ago that is huge, but what are the keys to success? So the companies that do it well versus those that are not doing it so well, what are the keys to success with B2B e-commerce?
Right. Well, and that, I guess you hit on an important part there. A lot of business buyers are used to dealing with a sales rep, calling up, or maybe it's somebody the sales rep that they feel know the buyer really well, know what the buyer needs. So in a sense, the e-commerce site has to replace a sales rep. So it has to provide whatever information the buyer needs, and make it easy for them to, if they're going to buy one product, what other components do they need to go with that product? So they're making an intelligent purchase and getting, the company what it needs. But also offer, if it's all self-service, then you also offer the live chat or whatever other means you need to get help when they need it. And I think it also gets into just, but how do you keep the sales reps also involved, right? Mm-hmm. So, because they feel threatened. And so maybe, I think with a lot of companies, it's where their buyers will do a lot of their commodity, or more the simple purchases, maybe through self-service, as well as some of the more complicated products. But then it frees up the sales reps, who, by the way, may also be equipped now with iPads that are connected to their company's e-commerce site. So they go out in the field there, or whether they're at their call center, so they can help the customers do research and explain products, get immediate availability of inventory, get the most current, accurate pricing, and then help them, put together the right order, place the order right there for them if they need it. And so the sales rep is able to add more value to the customer experience here. And maybe so they can, instead of spending time helping a customer place basic orders, they can spend more time selling the more complex systems, or, more product lines.
Selling what's more complex, building relationships, helping helping grow that account to the next level rather than just being an order taker.
Right.
And so it's really interesting. And, change always makes some people leery or afraid that their job is going to be in jeopardy or just create some unknowns. But it really seems like probably most B2B companies are still using sales reps and just using the online space to supplement and help and make the experience easier for their customers. Is that what you're seeing as well? That usually it's the combo online and sales rep.
Yeah, I would think that's the case with a lot of companies. Yeah, or whether they're, I guess it all depends on what their model is. I mean, some
Sure.
companies buyers rely more, really need more of the sales reps. But yeah, I think sure a lot of companies are going that hybrid approach.
Yeah, it's kind of like what we talked about on the B2C side of things is that uh, consumers now don't maybe necessarily think about in-store versus online purchasing. They just think about, I want to buy something and I'll buy
Yeah,
this
right.
whatever mood I'm in, whatever may vary from product to product, but some people like to buy in store, some like to buy online, and sometimes that varies. And I think
Yeah,
the same is probably true with the B2B side of things. Now,
yeah,
one of the things you alluded to a minute ago, you talked about the online experience. And this is one of those things that where, on the B2C side, you've got people like Amazon and Jet and Rue La La and REI and all these big players that create these fantastic shopping experiences online. And so the bar is set pretty high, right? It's like going to a movie and watching, the latest Star Wars film and then, going and watching a home movie. That's sometimes what it's like when you visit a B2C site and then go to a B2B e-commerce site. But definitely B2B is progressing and growing. And I think those that are doing it well get that the experience is so critical. So can you
right.
talk about that a little bit and maybe talk about some B2B companies that are doing that well, creating the online experience the way they should?
Yeah, sure. And so I guess one way to do it well is, that you're personalizing your content on your site to your customers, or whether it's individual customers or groups of customers, or develop personas, as they say. Um, and as I had mentioned to you earlier, like Gene Alvarez, who's one of the major uh, e-commerce analysts at Gartner Incorporated, he we reported this a while ago, but he was saying how companies that do a good job of personalizing their B2B sites for their business customers will have noticeably, much higher. Okay, he said that they will outsell their competitors by around 30%. That, in other words, the companies that have good personalized content will outsell their competitors who don't have good personalized content by 30% within a few years, or sooner.
I believe that.
That,
I believe
yeah,
that. I was thinking the other day, I was talking to someone here at Classy Llama about a particular product that I order from kind of a smaller online merchant. This is B2C, but still it's the more the experience and the process that applies. And I can never remember my login to this site. And when I create a new login, it doesn't save. And the checkout process is a real pain on this site. But they have a product that I love and I can't find anywhere else. And I have been thinking about buying this product for about 2 months, but I don't because I hate the site. And if that product was on Amazon, I would have bought it 2 months ago. Would have bought it in 5 minutes. But it's one of those things where personalization, better experience, that makes such a difference. And I don't know that merchants fully grasp what they're losing if they're not doing that well. Can you think of some B2B companies that are really hitting this out of the park or really doing a good job at personalization or just the overall experience?
yeah, and I mean some of the companies that we try to talk to these kind of companies all the time, but some of the ones that stand out are, W. Granger, the big distributor of, they call MRO supplies, or maintenance, repair, and operations. So they sell everything from power generators to hammers and whatever. But they've been one of the leaders in e-commerce since over 10 years ago. I remember having a Granger expert at a conference back in, I think, 2000. And, I think they really try to decide what do their customers need and how do they need it. How do they want to buy and research things online, and they figure out how to provide that on their site. So you go to the Grainger site and there's all kinds of information about their products. Whether it's videos or different product demonstration videos, other online customer service, plenty of educational content. Or if a buyer is looking for something, say, for a particular category, like somebody at a business needs to prepare or get a lot of equipment, say for disaster prevention. They want to get their company prepared for a hurricane or something. You can go to Grainger and you see a section just on that. So they have all the cross-selling availability. You can see, if you buy this product, then you also need these other products to make it all work. So it just, figuring out what your customer needs and really make it really helpful. And then you got companies like 3M. I think they told us they do about a little over $7 billion a year in e-commerce sales now, and they're projecting to grow that quite a bit over the next several years. And one of the things they do is, they're huge in social media. They really learned how to take advantage of engaging customers through all this media, and also just upgrading their global sites, to really make it, to have a global control. If you have a globally distributed websites, you have a headquarters control, but you have local control of content. So it's for the local languages or the local way your customers want to buy.
Yeah, it's interesting. And you mentioned social media. What are you seeing and hearing? So B2B companies, I would assume they're fairly split, or that it's kind of a mixed bag in terms of how they feel about social media, how they utilize social media. But what are you seeing? What general consensus? What is the B2B take on social media, and how do they utilize social?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of them are learning it. LinkedIn seems to be the main channel I think companies are using. There's whether they're using the kind of marketing campaigns or advertising campaigns that are built into some of these social sites now, but also just being aware of how your brand is mentioned, and then learning from that and seeing how you can respond to it. I think that's still kind of an early area, or ahead of the curve, I guess. But
right, and it does depend. If someone's just a commodity supplier of something, then they may not need to get all that involved in Facebook. And I don't know how much you want to talk to your distributors on Facebook, but LinkedIn makes sense, and probably there's some other ways that they could leverage social as well. But let's talk about technology shifts. And what are you seeing in the B2B space? What new technology shifts, improvements in features? What are you seeing around technology in the B2B space?
Well, it's interesting. Just like in the retail side, it seems like a lot of vendors or a lot of the vendors who have normally served the bigger companies are trying to go down market to serve mid-size and smaller ones. The ones who are serving the small and mid-size are trying to go up market to serve the bigger ones. More companies going to the SaaS, software as a service. So you can just subscribe, pay a monthly or annual based fee to log on to the software they're hosting for you, so you don't have to invest in all your own network servers and all that. But I think it's interesting that you have a number of companies here. Some are based on CRM, like EpiServer, and you have Salesforce.com now has some companies that are building e-commerce software to run on Salesforce, so it's tied in with your CRM. Companies like Cloud Craze, and there was and now you have on the open source software, you have Magento has been huge, especially on the retail side, and
Sure.
as well as on the B2B side. But it takes a little more, it takes some customization there. And now you had the founders of the founders of Magento. After they left eBay, they started a company called Oro,
Right.
ORO,
Yeah.
right? And they started out with Oro CRM, which is a CRM software, but now I believe they're in their first test period of oral commerce, which, like Magento, is apparently a very flexible open source software, and I think that's going to be really interesting to see how that takes up for the B2B space, because this is built more for B2B, whereas Magento is really, I think, built more for retail e-commerce.
Yeah, we're really fascinated by that as well, and we know the folks at Oro. Actually, Jari Carter was on the Llama Commerce show. He's one of our first guests, in fact. I think he was like in show number 5 or something like that. Great guy. And yeah, with regardless of whether you're B2B or B2C e-commerce, you have to know your customer, and the companies that are winning and doing well know customer buying patterns. They're building relationships. They've got good CRM data. They're segmenting. They're understanding when people buy, why they buy, and they're influencing that. But with the B2B side, because you're dealing with smaller number of clients, then and each relationship is so critical. Then having all of those data points, having the CRM, having all that back end, so that you can really provide recommendations, provide the service that you need to. It's all extremely important. So yeah, it's going to be exciting to watch some of the new developments in B2B e-commerce, and Oro is definitely one that we're going to be watching. Let's talk briefly about mobile. So how is mobile impacting B2B, and what are B2B companies, what are they thinking about mobile?
Yeah, well, I would agree. I think it's becoming more and more important all the time too, because just as in buyers' personal lives or in their retail buying, a lot of people are opting for the convenience of purchasing through mobile, and I think so you're seeing more companies, even like big manufacturers like Caterpillar, providing mobile sites or mobile apps, so that the buyers out in the field, on the job site, can order what they need right there, or whether it's the sales reps, you go into or like a healthcare products company can actually visit the physicians in the hospitals, and they're busy, but so you can right there show them the latest products and help them make decisions and purchases right there. So yeah, and I think there's a lot of efforts there to use responsive design, so that your content renders properly on the different devices. And yeah, I think it looks like that's just gonna keep growing there.
Absolutely, yeah. And so moving the purchase closer to where people are utilizing the product, and closer to the person that is working with the product. So in the healthcare industry, those that are serving patients and doing the work in the automotive space, or we work in the security business some, so technicians that are out there working on installing systems, them being able to order what they need from the manufacturer on a mobile device. That all is really important. So that's going to be interesting to watch as well. I think overall the B2B side of things are a little slower to adopt the mobile side of things, but certainly going to be interesting to watch that develop. So kind of as we get close to wrapping up here, what advice would you give someone, so a B2B merchant looking to improve sales, looking to grow, what advice would you give them in terms of what are some places to start? What are some areas to consider improving? I know it's going to be a little bit different for every business, but what advice in general would you give to a B2B merchant?
I'm sorry, do you mean as far as whether they're going to what kind of technology are they going to deploy, or just what they're
so if they're looking to improve, their offering, if they're looking to connect better with consumers, what advice would you give them? Who would you tell them to pay attention to? Where should they go to stay informed and inspired, and that type of thing?
Oh, right. Okay. What I think where they ought to go first is sit down really with their customers, or do a customer panel, or do some kind of research with them, or just use analytics to see how their customers have been interacting with them, and really understand what their customers want, or whether it's your existing customers or your prospective customers. How do they really want to engage with you? And then talk to your consultants or systems integrators, and they're different web design experts, and get an idea of then how can you either build something new or tweak what you have to engage your customers the way your customers are telling you how do they want to have a more streamlined research and checkout process, or what kind of online help do they really need, and then tweak your technology that way, and then also decide, maybe with help from your financial analysts or your business analysts, to say, okay, do we want to go software as a service? Do we want to basically subscribe or rent this software, or do we want to have more control over our own on-premise licensed software, so that we can tweak ourselves, or even go to the open source route? But then do we have the resources in-house, or do we want to hire them from outside to help us tweak all this software, or do you want something more off the shelf,
Sure.
or that you can subscribe to? Yeah.
Sure. And I love the idea of incorporating, so asking customers, what are your pain points? What do you want us to see? What do you want to see better? What can we do differently? Also, one of the things that we recommend all the time is that business owners incorporate their support staff, those that talk to the customers on a daily basis, the sales staff, and say, what are people saying? What are they asking for? How do they buy? Really knowing what the customer wants, and then delivering that. So that's awesome. Oh, and one thing that I forgot to ask earlier, but I don't want to end without asking it. How important is brand building? And we've got a great client that I think illustrates this on our end. But how important is brand building, do you think, for B2B? Because I don't think that's what comes to mind first for some B2B companies. But how important is it? And any examples of people doing that well?
Well, I think it's pretty important. Because people talk about the customer journey, right? Or it's often just described in like a funnel, right? Or at the top of the funnel, it's broad, and they're doing a wide search for all different kind of products and brands and all that. Go further down into the funnel, and they narrow down their search and maybe latch onto one company or another more. But it seems like now, as you go through that funnel, it's just more and more points of interaction with multiple players here, right? Because they're going to see recommendations from colleagues and social media. They're going to see all kinds of or ads that pop up from companies that are following them with cookies, software cookies, and all that. It just seems that there's more and more opportunities to for other companies to to take part in that customer journey. So I think the brand has to really stand out with the value that they're offering to their customers. Not only the value of the good product and the good customer service that the customers know goes with it, but just the overall experience of going to, say, an e-commerce site, that the brand is known by the customers as a place where their site offers them the ease and speed of making their purchases and giving them whatever assistance that they really need. So they're making the buyer's job easier, and I think that's whole part of the branding.
Yeah, absolutely. And we always think of Espresso Parts. They're one of our clients, and we love those people. And we're also coffee nuts, so that helps a little bit. But Espresso Parts, based out of Seattle, they sell equipment and cups and dinnerware and things like that for independent coffee shops to do a fantastic job. There's a guy locally at a great coffee shop here in Springfield. He wears an Espresso Parts t-shirt almost every day. So Espresso Parts has this cool logo. They got this great vibe, this great energy, and their customers, love that brand. And I don't think there are many distributors, and B2B companies like that where people are so crazy about the brand. But it makes a difference. And it all ties into the relationship and the reputation and the relationship. And so it's all important. Well, Paul, let's do this. This has been awesome. You are a wealth of information, and I know you're writing on some really important topics. All the time I'm seeing tweets and posts and stuff that you're involved in that's really meaningful. And so what are the best places for people to kind of plug in and see what you're writing about, see what's new and what's hot in B2B, where should they check you out?
Well, yeah, thanks. It's I mean, we actually have a new website. It's called B2B eCommerceWorld.com, and so there whatever we write every day and week is posted there, and our B2B EC News twice weekly newsletter. That content is also linked to that website where people can actually also just sign up for these free newsletters, because the newsletters are sponsored by advertisers, so there's no cost to the readers. And we also do these special reports that are more magazine-like format, that are digital, and that would also link from the site. But I mean, of course, I'm always watching. It's like anyone else. You get so many Twitter feeds or so many leads through email. I think another. I have a colleague in this industry who also recently has a good B2B site. If you were to search for Justin King, he's a really good blogger on B2B e-commerce.
That's Justin. What's his last name again?
King, like the Queen and King. Yeah, King.
Yep, K-N-G. Okay, Justin King.
Right.
Blog. Got it. Okay.
Right.
Very cool. That's good. And then on Twitter, you are at P Demery.
Right.
Is that correct? Yep.
That's right.
So check out Paul on Twitter. Check out B2B eCommerceWorld.com. Fantastic stuff. Also check out IRCE. Paul will be heading up the B2B track, and that's in June.
Right. June 7th through the 10th. Yeah.
7th through 10th of June, 2016. Check that out. Paul, awesome stuff. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll have to do this again sometime. Thanks.
Sure. Thank you, Brett. It's always great to talk to you.
Very good. Hey, talk soon.
Okay. Take care.
And as always, everybody, let us know what you think. Let us know what you'd like to see more of, less of. And until next time, stay classy.